Our topic for today is decimal percent conversions. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to do conversions both directions today, decimals to percents and percents to decimals. And what I want you to keep in mind is that this word percent, this really means for every 100. So when you are working with percents, we use 100 quite a bit because that percent means for every 100. So let's say that we need to convert decimals to percent. So we're given the decimal, we need to change it into a percent. I always have kids use what I call the Dr. Pepper method. DP, Dr. Pepper, decimal to percent. What you're really doing when you are converting decimals to percents is you are multiplying by 100. And there's a simple way to do that by simply moving the decimal point. So you move your decimal point 2 places to the right when you're making decimal to percent conversions. If there's only one digit, you can add a 0 if you need to, and then you write your percent sign. So decimal to percent, take that decimal point 2 places to the right every time. And that's all there is to it. When you multiply it by 100, you're really moving that over, changing the place values. So here's a couple of examples. We've got 0.29. We're going to convert it to a percent. So we start at that decimal point, move it 2 places to the right, and we end up with 29 because that decimal point ends right there behind the 9. And our percent sign always goes at the end. Today, when you are typing up your answers into formative, you must put your percent sign at the end. If you don't put it at the end, it will count it incorrect. And you will not be allowed to receive points for credit because it's not the right notation. The percent sign is always at the end. Let's look at this one here. I'm going to start at where the decimal point is, and I'm going to move 2 places to the right. But I have this divot that's left, so I have to add another 0. So 7/10 as a percent would be 70%. I want you to pause the video here and give the other two a try, and then when you come back, you will see the answers. So please pause. All right, there's the 2 answers for questions. They're numbered as 13 and 14. And if you have any questions, please let me know. But remember that percent sign goes at the end. All right, so now let's talk about converting a percent to a decimal. We're going to follow the same process, except this time we're going to go the opposite direction. When you're converting a percent to a decimal, you're actually dividing by 100. That word percent means per 100. So what we do is we look at that percent symbol without a decimal, and we are this time going backwards. Remember, we have our DP, which means decimal percent. We're going from the percent to the decimal. So we're actually going to move our decimal point 2 places to the left this time. Then we rewrite it, no percent sign. The percent sign stays off. So let's look at a couple of examples here. Here I have percents. I'm going to write them as decimals. And as you can see, we have 4%. So that decimal point, since it's not already there, we know it comes behind the 4, between the 4 and the percent sign. I'm going to move 2 places to the left. It's going to leave me a divot. So oops, sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. Let me undo. So what's going to happen is I have to fill in that divot with a 0. So 4% is really 400ths or 0.04. I'm going to do the same thing here, 33.2%. 1% means that you have a whole. So if we have 33%, that would mean that we have 33 wholes. So I'm going to take this decimal point, I'm going to move it 2 places to the left, and it's now becomes 0.332 or 332 thousandths. I want you to go ahead and work out questions 2 through 5. Pause the video, and when you come back, you will see your answers. All right, please check your answers. Make sure you're right. If you have questions, let me know. Should be a pretty simple assignment for you today.